Congressman LoBiondo is here, so the world is as it should be. We're in perfect alignment. And if you're new to this program, not Hurley in the morning because we're in year 26, but if you're new to the Ask the Congressman program, because typically the congressman is in studio, I would say about 99.5% of the time, if not higher, in studio in the 5 o'clock hour. And it's wonderful. Wonderful to have him in studio, and the program has been extremely relevant for more than 3 years now. What we have done several times, just a handful of times, but we did it last month, and your phone call volume was incredible, and the program went just fantastic. We did a special Hurley in the Morning edition of Ask the Congressman in this same hour, the 7 o'clock hour in the month of February, and obviously with President Trump delivering a speech before the joint session of Congress tonight, Congressman LoBiondo is in our nation's capital and unable to be in studio for a 5 p.m. program. It's just humanly, even for Frank LoBiondo, who I've seen at a viewing, funeral, whatever, and then he's in our nation's capital, 2.5 hours later, we couldn't physically do it. So we're pleased to be able to do, and we didn't want to miss the month of February. So in January, we did the congressman from Washington as well. So we didn't want to miss February's program, and it's a great opportunity to welcome Congressman LoBiondo to his monthly program, Ask the Congressman. Yes, your calls are already standing by, and we'll get to you in just a little bit. Congressman, good morning.
Good morning, Harry.
How you doing?
Yeah, we're doing great.
Now, tonight is a very special occasion. Because the president has only been in office for a few weeks, it's not formally the State of the Union, but it really is similar to that. It's a presidential address before a joint session of Congress. What are your thoughts? What are your expectations?
Well, I think and I hope, at least from reports, that the president's going to begin to lay out with some specifics how he intends to move us forward. One of the big items that's been getting a lot of attention is the increase in spending for defense. But while people I'm already hearing about this, but while people have to remember, this in terms of what we've done in the past is only a very, very small increase over what Barack Obama even had proposed. And our readiness is nowhere near it needs to be. All the indicators that will keep us safe and strong are on the wrong side of the equation. So I think this is a big one. I'm going to be particularly interested to see what the president says about infrastructure. We know this is something that the nation struggles with our roads and our bridges and our highways and how we deal with this. We have had a very bipartisan approach to this over the time I've been a member of Congress. But there's been a problem with funding. So, I guess you can say there's a problem with funding with a lot of things. So what does the president lay out there? And we have been reactive in the war on terror. So something happens, we react to it. General Mattis and his team is supposed to be laying out, and whether the president will lay it out tonight, I'm going to be anxious to see what is the strategy moving forward, a proactive strategy on dealing with ISIS and the war on terror. So it should be a very interesting evening.
Many phone calls for Congressman LoBiondo. Let's prove that the program really is Ask the Congressman, meaning your opportunity to ask your congressman a question by dialing 609-407-1450 at 9 minutes past the hour. United States Congressman Frank LoBiondo is here. Jack, say hello to your congressman. Good morning.
Good morning, Congressman. It's Jack Glasser. How are you, sir?
Hey, good morning, Mayor.
How are you, sir? It's just so good to hear that you're representing us in Washington, and I appreciate everything you're doing. I just want to call in and say that this morning.
Well, thanks, Jack. You got everything under control in Summers Point?
We're doing well, Congressman. Summers Point can't be better, and I thank you for all your support you've given us for these many years that I've been the mayor, and I just want you to continue doing that, and thank you.
Mayor, let me also say real quick before you run, I know you're going to run quick. That's the kind of guy he is. I just quickly said you're going to be the first caller. He says, Harry, it's Jack. I didn't bother to check further, and he's not the kind of guy who's mayor, So thanks for the call this morning, Mayor Glasser. And also, I think you'll be very interested in a report that I'm going to do at 8:50, right after Chuck Malamut this morning, breaking news regarding the race for Atlantic County Sheriff. I think it's devastating news for one of the candidates. My only clue that I'll give at this hour is It's not about you, but certainly you're in the race, so you will be interested in it. That's going to come up at 10 minutes before 9. Okay?
Harry, thank you. I've seen it this morning, and I'm not going to comment because you're the man that can break the news in all of Atlantic County, and I want to leave it up to you to do that. But I've seen that, and I just want to say that this has been a tough race, and I'm going to continue to do my very best and to seek the endorsement of Atlantic County Republicans.
Good luck, Mayor. Good to talk to you.
Thank you, Harry, and Congressman, thank you.
Good luck, Chuck.
Very good shape. I don't want to take away from the Congressman's time. When the mayor says he read it, I broke it on Facebook and Twitter simultaneously in the 5 o'clock hour, but it will be a Hurley in the Morning exclusive on WPG at 10 minutes before 9 o'clock this morning. Back to your calls at 609-407-1450 for United States Congressman Frank LoBiondo. Welcome to Ask the Congressman on Hurley in the Morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Congressman. It's Joe from Marmora.
Good morning.
As you know, Congressman, President Obama saw fit to release dozens, I don't know, maybe even hundreds of people from Gitmo. Have we been able to track them, and do we have any idea of how many of these people have returned to the jihad?
We have been able to track at least some of them. The news is not good. The rate of them returning to making war on America, I've heard the percentage. I don't want to say a wrong percentage, but certainly some of them have. And what is particularly disturbing is that a number of these individuals who were released by President Obama, I believe just to fulfill a campaign promise, ignoring the reality of how dangerous these people are, were rated extremely dangerous and likely to return to the war on terror in a very active operational way. These are people that are deemed very dangerous because of their capabilities for operational planning, and they're now released. So this is not good. Once they're released, there's much we can do about it unless something bad happens to them on the battlefield. But that was one of the areas where I was very upset with what a former president did.
Do we still have anybody left in Gitmo?
Yes, we do. And I think it's safe to assume that that trend to get rid of them from Gitmo at any cost, paying countries to take them and not worrying about tracking them, is that's over. I don't see that continuing in any way, shape, or form.
Joe, thank you for your call. Thanks for checking in. It's Ask the Congressman, special Hurley in the Morning edition. Caller, welcome to the program. You're on the air with Congressman Frank LoBiondo. Go right ahead.
Good morning, sir. I want to say, hold on a second. My alarm going off.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Good. You beat the alarm.
Oh, jeez.
Don't worry. It's only radio. Nobody's going to get hurt.
Now, it was actually Mr. Reagan, President Reagan, that actually corrected the screwed up things that Jimmy Carter done. He took Jimmy Carter's screw-ups and made it. He gave us an age of prosperity. Now, President Trump is up against more even than Mr. Reagan was up against. He's against Jimmy Carter on steroids compared to what Obama has left us now. We have a $220 trillion unfunded liability debt, and we have a $20 trillion national debt. Now, he said he's not going to audit the Fed, but now we're not going to get the Democrats on board because Tip O'Neill cooperated with Mr. Reagan. We're not going to have that because they're traitors as far as I'm concerned. But what can be done as far as Republican politicians backing up Mr. Trump, and what can we do about this national debt? Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Well, that's an excellent question and a sort of a real dilemma of how we move forward because of what the needs of the country are with defense, how we're going to handle the healthcare situation, how we're going to handle the rewriting of the tax code. But to give the man a little bit of breathing space, he's only been president a little more than a month, and his key positions for some of the positions in the cabinet that will determine how this moves forward were only just, in fact, authorized by the U.S. Senate, specifically the Office of Management and Budget with former Congressman Mulvaney from South Carolina, where he's just had, I think, maybe 2 weeks to get into the office, to start to look at the books. the president will be giving a budget to Congress where, we're going to be very anxious to see what the president is proposing here, because we have to move forward with national defense and protecting the country, and yet we can't ignore this national debt and how we're going to deal with it. Now, the president, I think, has pretty much indicated that the biggest component of spending in the federal government, which is the mandatory spending, and Harry, just for our listeners, if you break spending into discretionary and mandatory, if you eliminated all discretionary spending, that means all of defense, all of education, all of everything else, you can't balance the budget. Mm. You just can't do it, because mandatory spending has skyrocketed to the degree where it is by formula, meaning mandatory, it's not voted on every year. Mandatory means that Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, which are incredibly important programs that we need to protect, but there's not a vote on them each year. They're driven by formula. So how do we make sure we protect, which I have pledged to do, everyone who's on Social Security and Medicare, and how do we make sure that we have a couple of our counties in our congressional district that are more than 30% Medicaid? That's a huge number. So how do we move this forward? And these are some of the things I'm going to be looking at very closely as the president starts to make proposals and send them here to Capitol Hill.
As I knew would be the case, you are absolutely rocking the LoBiondo phone lines. The next caller, you know who you are. Don't bail out during the break. Sean Hannity is up, a Hurley in the Morning Profit Center break. We're going to be right back more with our Hurley in the Morning special edition of Ask the Congressman with your United States Congressman Frank LoBiondo. Programming note, my good friend Joe Piscopo will join us at 8:30. Chuck Malamud at 8:05. We're going to pair out about 4 minutes while Joe is on a break to get him on, and I'm going to ask him the definitive question: is he running for governor of New Jersey? This decision is very, very close. I don't know what Joe's answer is going to be on the air, but I can tell you he's very close to making a decision. He'll appear in studio with Hurley in the Morning coming up in just over an hour from now. Back with Congressman LoBiondo and your calls in just a few minutes. Hey, thanks very much, Sean Hannity. It is Congressman Frank LoBiondo in a special Hurley in the Morning edition of our monthly program, and we love your participation on the phone lines at 609-407-1450. It's Ask the Congressman with your distinguished Congressman Frank LoBiondo, who is here appearing today live from our nation's capital. Welcome to the program. You're on the air. Welcome.
Good morning, Congressman. Willie Norwood, right here in Atlantic City, and I'm a candidate for state senator, and I support Chris Brown, Assemblyman. And I want to say, Congressman, you said the magic word when you said more than 30% of your constituents here are dealing with Medicaid and Medicare. And I would like to say I got a letter from Medicaid, Medicare, VA, where they are finagling money. One give you money, the other take it away. You stand strong for us. We don't have to worry about president, not a Republican Party, not a Democrat Party. You're doing right by the people here. And I'm going back from Congressman Hughes, 8182, WSS, Radio, Harry Hurley. We're very fortunate here, Democrats and Republicans. We get along, religious, veterans, and medical. And you stand because we can't get there, and we can't always get this message to the president, no matter who it is, from here to the president. You can.
All right, let me jump in, Willie, only because there's so many calls holding, and I don't want lost on the congressman the fact that you just heard a candidate for the New Jersey Senate who's running himself and as a Democrat and supporting Assemblyman Chris Brown for the same office, the Republican. You heard it correct, Congressman.
Well, Willie has not lost his touch. We'll put it that way.
That's an American original right there. There's no doubt. Welcome to Ask the Congressman. You're on the air.
Hello.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, Congressman.
Morning.
And I really thank you for all the work that you do for us in responding to everybody's concerns. You're one of a kind. But in any case, my biggest concern is for those things that have occurred in the recent administration, past administration, having to do with our safety. I mean, it happens in many ways, but I'm more concerned with the FAA and the air traffic controllers, the qualifications program that had been essentially used as a social engineering tool to bring people in terms of diversity, which is great. I love diversity, but if we need the most qualified people being trained and being put into our air traffic control system, is anything going to change with that? And because it's been essentially cut in half in terms of the people that are really qualified, they can really do the job.
Sure. That's an outstanding question and one of critical importance because of the nature of the job. And just so all of the rest of our listeners understand, we are facing an air traffic controller shortage. Many of the air traffic controllers across the country are aging out. They're ready to put in for their retirement. And the FAA, despite the efforts of us in Congress to move them forward sort of more expeditiously with the top-tier candidates for those positions, they're basically ignoring and saying that we really don't have a problem, we really don't have a shortage. And while we had many of our community colleges and universities that had programs for air traffic controllers, that those programs were attracting the best and the brightest of our young people, incredible talent, that they were paying for these courses all on their own. The FAA, through the administrator, Mr. Huerta, decided to arbitrarily change, as our last caller pointed out, to make this more, biodiversity. The questions had nothing to do with the actual talent. And it got so bad, Harry, that if you were a military air traffic controller, you couldn't even qualify in many cases to be a civilian air traffic controller. So to answer the specific question, is there anything we can do? We've tried to point out to the FAA how ludicrous this is when you've got so many talented, I'm going to say kids, young people who have the aptitude and have the willingness to do this very complicated and important job, that they would reverse this on their own. What we have coming up later in the year is the FAA reauthorization bill. It's typically a 4, 5, or 6-year bill. We're working on a number of aspects that go into the bill. It's all of the FAA, which means everything to do with all the stakeholders, with the airports and the airlines and general aviation and manufacturing and air traffic controllers with the FAA. And we will be looking to do something specific in the bill which will not have FAA able to determine on their own how they make these decisions. We'll try to force them by legislation. I certainly want to see if that's possible.
Thank you for your question, comprehensive answer. You're listening to United States Congressman Frank LoBiondo, 27 minutes past the hour. I'm Hurley in the morning. And your calls continue, 609-407-1450. Welcome to Ask the Congressman. You're on the air.
Good day, Congressman and Harry. Under President Trump's watch, illegal immigration is down 29% crossing the border from Mexico. Now he wants to go after the sanctuary cities. There's over 300 of them in the U.S. I think there's like 10 in New Jersey. He wants to stop the funding for sanctuary cities. What do you think about that? Isn't that great?
Well, I think it is. Now, let's make sure we frame this properly, that this has to do with current law, that sanctuary is illegal. Current law is sanctuary cities are illegal, and the former Attorney General and former administration chose to selectively enforce the laws that they wanted to. So if they liked the law, they enforced it. If they didn't like a law, they ignored it. And what the new administration is doing is saying, listen, we are obligated to enforce the laws of the land. And I think this is something that a lot of people are having a problem with, but the power of the purse is there. And I think you're either going to see some of these big city mayors like Rahm Emanuel and de Blasio start to understand that they've got to follow the law, or they'll be suffering consequences with federal funds.
Do not give up your place on the phone lines. We're coming right back for your United States Congressman Frank LoBiondo in exactly 2 minutes, a very short break here with you on the Hurley in the Morning program in a special edition of our monthly program, Ask the Congressman. We come your way typically, and it floats based on, obviously, Congressman LoBiondo's voting schedule and his time in the district, which is voluminous, but still, he has other appointments as well. So we set a 5 o'clock hour in the evening aside once a month for Ask the Congressman the past 2 months, because obviously there's been a whole lot going on in our nation's capital with the new president and the new Congress and everything, where in January and now in February we have done this as a Hurley in the Morning special edition of Ask the Congressman. We did it one other time about a year or so ago, and every time we've done it, you've been just fantastic. So the call volume is voluminous. Again, stay on the phone lines. We're coming right back to your call, 609-407-1450. No phone lines are open. Well, one just did open as I announced I was going to break, 609-407-1450. Literally, if you've been trying to get through for the past 30 minutes, there's one open line each time that particular caller ends their call. That's all we've had. So jump in. Your questions are most meaningful. It's the whole reason that the Congressman does the program, is an opportunity to speak with you. Another great one. LoBiondo is here. It's Ask the Congressman, a special Hurley in the Morning edition, and we're taking your phone calls for the next 28 minutes uninterrupted. Let me squeeze in a question, though, edgewise, and then come right back to our listener phone calls, because here's one I do think that we should put the Congressman on the spot, that concerned citizens have been protesting at Congressman LoBiondo's Mays Landing office in recent weeks. And we've learned about this, Congressman. What are their demands, and how are you addressing their concerns?
Well, Harry, first of all, we welcome all constituents to express their point of view, to contact us. That's been the case as long as I've been a member of Congress. But it's really kind of strange. It's all across the board. There are different groups that have specific titles. There's a MoveOn.org group. There's an Indivisible group. There are a couple of others. There was one that showed up on Saturday that was motivated by Bernie Sanders supporters. A lot of them are focusing on health care and what may happen with health care. Some of it is just plain anti-Trump. Anything with Trump is anti for some of these people. Some of them have to do with environment. It's kind of all across the board.
Is it also, and I know I don't want to put you on the hook on this because, oh my gosh, the minute somebody important like LoBiondo would dare say this, but I'm just going to say it. You don't even have to agree. I smell a rat here too. I truly believe, I have a term called seminar caller. That's somebody that has a script, that whether it's these radical groups that put them up to it here, you call Hurley, you call people like Hurley and Hannity and Mark Levin, and then you read this script and you rip them and you do this and you do that. Some of this looks very ginned up to me, Congressman.
Well, listen, they're all majority of this. We're having some folks that are from outside of the district. We have the majority of folks, and there's no way of telling exactly how many are from the district, how many are not from the district. And look, I am a target of the DCCC. I'm an officially named target of the DCCC. So that in itself is going to attract a certain amount of attention. But, Harry, that having been said, many of these people have legitimate concerns. I try to read, it's a little bit difficult these days, every phone opinion that comes in every day, and you can tell some of them are scripted calls, but that's okay. These are people who are members of particular groups or organizations, and I think in a representative democracy, listening to people is important, and that's what I've tried to do in the past, and that's what I'm continuing to try to do now.
Our 609-407-1450 phone lines are open for your United States Congressman, Frank LoBiondo. The program is Ask the Congressman. If you've not caught us in the evening edition, it's what we do once a month, and the Congressman spends an hour, takes your phone calls, your comments, your questions, your concerns, and this is a special Hurley in the Morning edition, with tonight being the occasion of the President of the United States delivering a speech before a joint session of Congress. The Congressman obviously could not be here in studio tonight at 5, so we are thrilled to have the opportunity to do it here this morning in the 7 o'clock hour. Welcome to Hurley in the Morning. More importantly, welcome to Ask the Congressman with Congressman LoBiondo.
Good morning, Harry. Good morning, Frank.
Good morning.
Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, but since January 20th, when Mr. Trump was sworn in as president, I don't recollect any Russian airplanes buzzing our ships or the Iranian flotilla over in in the Middle East harassing any of our ships. Has back channels worked that the next buzz to one of our ships, you're going to get a missile up your afterburner or your little flotilla, and maybe one of your nuclear plants are going to disappear?
A missile up your afterburner. That's very good, Eric. Very good. Congressman.
Well, certainly I think Russia, Iran, some of them are paying much closer attention. North Korea seems to still want to be provocative. The Russians did have a sub and a spy ship just off our Jersey coast since Mr. Trump has been president. But I think they have a different attitude. I think they realize that with Mr. Trump as president and with General Mattis as Secretary of Defense, that a lot of the things that maybe were ignored in past years will not be ignored now. So exactly how they will be dealing with all of this, I don't think should be dealt with in the general public, and they shouldn't, as previous president did, announce what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, and how we're going to do it. That's not the right way to do these things. But I'm sure there are back channels that are being utilized to communicate by either General Mattis or by our Secretary of State to make sure that there is full communication about how seriously we take some of these things.
Has funding been cut off to Abbas and that group, and what about our funding to the United Nations? Is that going to be cut back or eliminated? I'll let you go. God bless both of you. Thank you for everything you do for us.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks. Well, there's the declaration that all NATO partners and in the UN as well, that there should be a certain percentage paid and people should carry their load. The United States has been carrying the bulk of the load for the United Nations and NATO. There was a clear message sent by President Trump. Our new Secretary of State, I think, has been talking about that. General Mattis was recently overseas talking about that. It seemed to have resonated by some of the foreign leaders acknowledging that they have not been paying their fair share and that will be changing. But the proof will be in what actually happens. We haven't seen that yet. As far as foreign aid goes, I think that the certain foreign aid is critical and essential, especially to countries like Israel that we are so dependent on, and they are dependent on us as allies, the only reliable democracy and ally in the Middle East. But for those countries that we've given money to who are not our friends, who don't take our side when there's a fight going on, who ignore all kinds of things that have to do with what the United States is looking for, and these are things that, we're talking about freedom and democracy issues here, not about the United States coming in and taking over somewhere. I think that's going to be looked at much more carefully. Those items are not determined till later in the year. The president, this is maybe a good time, Harry, to sort of put this in so people understand how it will work. The president will propose a budget to Congress, but that budget has to be acted on by Congress in all categories. All federal spending is in 12 separate appropriation bills. The president will have dollars filled in all of those categories, but then that'll be reviewed by the Appropriations Committee and the appropriate committees in Congress that'll go through line by line and then decide what actually gets voted on, what actually gets approved, and then that which does get approved by the House and the Senate gets sent to the president. And typically, a lot of that will not be determined until closer to the government's fiscal year, which ends on September 30th. The new fiscal year starts October 1st. So a lot of the spending decisions will be made in the next 6, 8, 9 months.
Congressman, very important civics lesson, because I think a lot of people know it from their schooling and just because of being good citizens, that all spending measures originate in the House of Representatives. So it really does. The president's budget becomes your budget, and if you don't like it, you don't have to act on it. And that's very important to note in our constitutional republic, that that's the way that it works. A president proposes and the Congress has to dispose. Now, here is from social media, and we got a bunch of them. I'm only going to be able to squeeze in one. We have so many calls to get to. So callers, do not get discouraged. We're going to get right back to you. This is a mutual friend of mine and Congressman LoBiondo. Mike Merlino, good guy, great veterans advocate, nice broadcaster in his own right with a long-time veterans program. And he writes in as follows, Congressman, the Vietnam Veterans Blue Water Navy Agent Orange Act, so it would be Senate Bill 682, House 569, died in committee on February 7th due to disinterest by veteran service organizations' failure to prioritize. National leadership blames it on the VA not funding it. Who is to blame for this bill not coming to the floor and getting a vote? And then a second part is the 1991 Vietnam Veterans Agent Orange Act, which was defended in the recent past, going to be reissued by the new Congress? Take it away, sir.
Well, first of all, we thank Mike for his service to our country in uniform and ever since in advocating for veterans. And the issue he's talking about is a very important issue, critically essential, that I am supporting. To determine what moves forward as far as the VA issues are concerned, typically what happens is the American Legion, VFW, the veteran service organizations submit a priority, and usually that priority is agreed on with, let's say, their top 2, 3, 5 items legislatively that they want to see. When there's unanimity from the veteran service organizations, you can almost be assured that those are the bills that will be moving forward. When there's not unanimity on what needs to move forward, then that's where it becomes dicey. VFW may support some. I'm not saying on this particular bill, so nobody misunderstand me here, but VFW may be fully supporting something. American Legion may see it a little bit differently. So it's hard to determine. Now, we are just in about 6 weeks or so, 8 weeks with the new session of Congress. All legislation from the past session that was not enacted essentially dies, must be reintroduced. I don't remember who the prime sponsor of this particular bill was, but I would find it hard to believe it would not be reintroduced again. And it's determined by individual members of Congress of what is introduced or not introduced in another session of Congress. So I expect to see this again, and hopefully this is an issue that maybe will not be acted on its own, but can be rolled into a bigger VA bill. Typically that happens often with different issues where the VA may have a number of different things that are ongoing that are important. Instead of doing each one individually, they would roll it into a more comprehensive bill.
We're going to come right back. Our final break. We'll have 12 minutes uninterrupted, just a few minutes away, and we'll come right back to your calls at 609-407-1450. Your phone calls the rest of the way. The questions that we had prepared will live for another day. Your United States Congressman in a special Hurley in the Morning edition of our monthly program, Ask the Congressman. We'll be right back on WPG. Tell a friend. We're at 104.1 FM, 1450 AM, and anywhere at WPGTalkRadio.com. Thank you very much. 48 minutes past the hour, as promised, 12 minutes. I just want to have a quick ceremony on air, and let me put the Congressman's mic on so he can enjoy this ceremony with me. Usually he's making the presentations. I'm going to make this presentation, special presentation. That's me tearing up all the show prep that I did for the Ask the Congressman program because we have the best listeners in the business, and I didn't need any questions. So that was a very important ceremony, and thank you for participating with me, Congressman, in that. If I could, before we get to the next caller, I've got to get this in. Before I tore up my my notes, I understand through several friends of mine that you are preparing to reintroduce the Vets ID Health Act. Can you take about I know you could talk for the rest of the show on it, but take about a minute just to tell us what this is, and am I right? Are you doing it? And then we'll get back to your callers.
Yes, I am reintroducing the bill today to follow up from the past couple of sessions. And essentially what it says is to create a pilot program in the 2nd Congressional District where the VA would issue an ID card to all of our veterans to give them the opportunity and make the choice. If they wanted to go to the VA, they could, or if they wanted to go to the doctor or hospital healthcare provider of their choice, they could do that as well. I think that for the veteran who is looking for the best health care possible, and for us to fulfill our promise to our veterans, that this would be an enormous step forward. And I do believe the VA would understand that if we did it in a pilot program, where turning on for the whole country is difficult. I think it would be the best thing for the country, but this would give them a chance to weigh it out for a period of time and see that it really does work. And I think because we've made so much progress here in South Jersey, especially recently, that maybe with a new Secretary of the VA, maybe we now have an opportunity to do this, which I'll continue to press for.
Just a little editorializing from me. There's not a congressman in America, member of Congress. I'll add the other club of 100, so 535 club. There's not another member of Congress that does more on a consistent daily basis for our veterans, to support our veterans, to support our military than Congressman Frank LoBiondo. And while I say that's an editorial comment, if you put it into a computer, the IBM computer, I forget the computer's name, but the one that beat the Jeopardy champion, the computer would say that does compute because it is fact-based, that LoBiondo has, in my estimation, the most credible, finest, just pedigree resume on military affairs, on veterans affairs, of any member of Congress, period. 609-407-1450, an open phone line. You're on the air. Whoa. Caller, are you there? All right. Sorry about that, but listen, I can take hearing myself once or twice, but 5 times, even for me, that's too much. Welcome to the program. You're on the air with the Congressman. Wow, what's going on here? Hold on. Let's see if it's every line. I want to apologize to the first line that we couldn't bring on. Caller, are you there? Hello? Wow, hold on. Congressman, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, I mean, every phone line is lit, but they're going berserk right now. Hold on, let's see if we got somebody here. Caller, are you there? Caller,
well, Harry, when you said you blew up the phone lines, you weren't kidding.
I mean, I didn't mean to be literal, sir, but I think so. Caller, are you there?
Yes, Harry, Congressman.
Wow, I don't know what happened. The last 4 or 5 lines were just monster mash. Bob, we hear you loud and clear. Welcome to the program. Ask the Congressman. Time is yours.
I wanted to ask the Congressman about tax reform, and I know with the Trump administration and the great Republican Congress, we're going to have very positive things coming out. And one item that I'm really would be thrilled with would be the investment tax credit. That would do wonders for our economy. You know, and particularly the state of New Jersey, where there may be a good likelihood that the Democrats will regain power. They're going to be a counterbalance to getting our economy going. Unfortunately, I'm sure they're going to have all sorts of things up their sleeves that will inhibit economic growth in New Jersey. And again, I'm just hoping the tax reform can get done in a quick manner, but also in an efficient manner, and we get some real stimulus again to get our economy going. Lower capital gains rates, the investment tax credit, and that's I think that's what we need. We've had 8 years of stagnation, so we need to change that.
I agree with you, Bob, and I want to thank you for over so many years being so thoughtful with your approach to solving problems and helping me with ideas. And the investment tax credit is crucial for the economy. Where the challenge is going to come in from what we're hearing at this end is that the president believes or has been convinced that he's going to have to do the health care changes before he does the tax changes. Now, that concerns me a little bit because you've got a window here that we're working with, and if we go past that window, we get into dangerous territory for not getting stuff done. But I have confidence that he's got a good team. They're putting together a plan. The exact parameters of the proposal, we've all heard some of the rumors about it, but we haven't seen the particulars. And I think it's going to be something that's essential for the country. Repatriate a lot of dollars that are offshore that are waiting to come in, and some estimates you may know better than me in the trillions of dollars. So I'm hopeful, like you, that we can get this done sooner rather than later.
Well, history tells us that it works. I mean, the Reagan, the
sure
years we had under Reagan, and again, I'm just looking forward to a great 4 years and beyond. So, All right, Congressman, thank you, and Harry, thanks a lot.
Bob.
You're welcome. So good to be with you, Bob. Let me squeeze in what I think are a few important questions to end today's action-packed episode of the Ask the Congressman program. Congressman LoBiondo, and I don't mean you, but in general, are Republicans getting a little squeamish about repealing, replacing, revising, whatever, Obamacare, Affordable Care Act, whatever we want to call it, because it's not lost on me that Republicans many, many times passed legislation, which I think we all knew was going to get vetoed, and we all knew that the votes would not be there for an override. But now that impediment has been removed, and now there's actually an opportunity to truly fix the Affordable Care Act or repeal and replace. And I might be reading the tea leaves a little bit wrong, Congressman, and I'm not saying it's you because I don't believe it is you. But I think now that the Republicans have somewhat absolute power, we realize the minority still has the ability to delay and in some cases to filibuster and things like that. But it just looks like now with both houses of Congress and the presidency in the hands of Republicans that maybe this is harder than it seemed when it couldn't happen. And now that it can happen, is there any reason that we should believe that the Republican resolve here is dented, squeamish, whatever you want to call it?
No, I don't think the resolve has been diminished or dented or whatever word you want to use. Where there is some controversy developing is that you have a faction in the House of Representatives, the Freedom Caucus, who has announced that they will not go forward with what is being shaped as the president's plan and the leadership plan to not just repeal, but remember, the promise was all along, yes, we voted to repeal, but the idea was we would never just repeal it and leave people hanging in the lurch, that there would always be something. And you've heard the president say repeatedly that what we replace it with is going to be very effective from a consumer standpoint, from an individual standpoint to give them the health care, and as well as from a cost standpoint. But you've got this group, the Freedom Caucus, who doesn't want to replace it with anything.
Yeah.
They just want to repeal it. And if they hold firm and decide that they will only vote to repeal and not do anything else, they can hold up the whole thing.
And that would be chaos. I mean, look, even a conservative like me, you can't simply repeal the Affordable Care Act, which you know that's a terrible name because it's been the Unaffordable Care Act. It's a joke. But you cannot repeal and not replace because it would just be chaotic.
It would be chaotic. And many of the people I've heard from that it could be a matter of life and death for them to be able to have coverage that they could not have otherwise. Now, the Affordable Care Act had all kinds of problems when it was put together, but the reality is that there are millions of people who are relying on it, and we've got to give them an alternative which keeps them whole. Now, the second part of the equation, which becomes very tricky, is that in the Senate, we can do some things called with reconciliation that have purely to do with budget numbers. But to fully be able to repeal and replace, say, simultaneously, reconciliation, the rules do not allow for that. It is impossible procedurally to do it, which means that once you get into the Senate, if you don't have 60 votes, you don't move forward with anything. And do you think for a minute that Chuck Schumer or any of the Democrats are going to lift a finger? I don't. They're going to tell Republicans, look, you own this. They're going to hope that it fails. They're going to hope that it's chaos, and they're going to hope that this points to 2018 for them to be able to pick up seats.
Exactly. Congressman, it's hard to believe, but our time has come and gone. What a fast hour this has been, sir.
It's been remarkable, as it always is, a good chance to hear from listeners, a good chance to communicate, and I am now off to my first Intel meeting of the day.
And then have a great night tonight. We wish you well, sir.
Okay,
Take care.
thanks.
You're welcome.
Right, bye.
Bye now.